All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be your guide through a truly chilling, true-to-source narrative today. We are going to unpack a fascinating intersection of ancient history, deep cultural respect, and the unseen forces that some believe literally still walk among us. We're essentially mapping out a mystery that is just as much about human arrogance as it is about the paranormal. So, get comfortable and let's unravel this whole thing together.
So, have you ever prayed to a jinn? Now, I know for a lot of us, the very concept of a jinn belongs entirely in folklore or fantasy, right? But what if I told you that in certain parts of the world, bowing your head to these entities is a daily reality? That is the core cultural mystery we're diving into today. We're going to look at a place where the barrier between the human world and the world of jinns is believed to be incredibly thin.
Okay, I want you to picture this. It is exactly 2 a.m. We're right in the heart of Delhi. The air is thick, it's pitch dark, and it is suffocating. A German Punjabi journalist named Matthew is running. He's panting, his heart is absolutely hammering in his chest, and he is completely trapped by unseen shadows that are closing in on him from every single pillar of an ancient ruin. He is terrified. But to understand how a modern, deeply skeptical foreigner ended up literally running for his life in the dead of night, we need to zoom out a bit.
Section 1. The Mystery of Feroz Shah Kotla.
To make any sense of what Matthew experienced, we first have to understand the ground he was actually standing on. See, this isn't just some random pile of old stones, it's a living, breathing historical site with a reputation that commands absolute awe from the locals. So what exactly is a jinn in this cultural context? Well, locals believe them to be paranormal entities residing right there in the Feroz Shah Kotla ruins. Thousands of people visit every single day to revere them, truly believing that these beings have the power to grant wishes. But, and this is absolutely crucial to the source material, these entities are complex. They possess both benevolent, helpful intentions and intensely malevolent, dangerous ones. You really do not want to cross them.
If we trace the roots of this belief back, we land in the 14th century, when the Tughlaq dynasty laid the foundation for Feroz Shah Kotla. It was an important, bustling historical stronghold, but the narrative gets a little darker in the later years. According to local lore detailed in our source, Feroz Shah actually engaged in dark rituals within the fortress. It was these very rituals that allegedly invited the jinns to take over the land in the first place, and that brings us straight to the present day. Today, specifically on Thursdays, the ruins are just packed with devotees writing letters, lighting candles, and leaving offerings for these unseen residents.
Section 2. A Foreigner's Skepticism.
Enter Matthew. He's a journalist who grew up in Germany, raised by a German father and a Punjabi mother. Because of his mom, he spoke excellent Hindi, but he had never really engaged with Indian culture on a deeper level. He traveled to India strictly for business, specifically hunting for internet content and flashy articles for a magazine. He had zero interest in local customs or reverence for sacred spaces. And this creates a really stark cultural contrast. On one side, you have Matthew's mindset, a bit arrogant, purely seeking content, and completely dismissive of anything he couldn't physically see or touch. He just wanted to get his story and get out. On the other side, his local caretaker was deeply reverent, legitimately fearful of the unseen, and highly respectful of paranormal boundaries. When Matthew casually mentioned he'd found Feroz Shah Kotla online and wanted to go poke around, the caretaker was visibly unnerved.
In fact, the caretaker gave Matthew a very specific, chilling warning before he left. He said, "You can go, sir, but stay within your limits. The entities here won't forgive you if you cross them." The caretaker explicitly told Matthew that anyone who steps foot in there must bow their head in respect, and that the entities wouldn't hesitate for a second to punish someone who walked in with an inflated ego. Matthew, of course, was deeply offended by the warning.
Section 3. The Terrifying Night Invitation.
Despite his annoyance, Matthew grabbed his camera and headed over to Feroz Shah Kotla during the day. It was incredibly hot, oppressively humid, and he was instantly just irritated by the weather and the crowds. But as he was about to leave, he witnessed a really rare, fascinating sight deep inside a cave-like area near a pillar. Hindu and Muslim devotees were worshiping side by side. They were offering milk and murmuring prayers together. Matthew approached a local man and asked why two different faiths were praying together in this one spot. The man calmly explained that they were bringing their wishes to the jinns whose home this was. Matthew's reaction? He literally burst into loud, mocking laughter right in the middle of this sacred space, calling the whole thing impossible and ridiculous.
The local man, understandably unamused, challenged Matthew to return at night if he was so confident it was all a joke.
Matthew arrogantly brushed him off, declaring he wasn't going to waste his time on blind faith. He turned to walk away. But as he took his very first steps to leave, he heard a voice right behind him. It whispered, "Matthew, you will come, right?" Let that sink in for a second. Matthew froze. He turned around. There was absolutely no one there. And more importantly, no one in those ruins knew his name.
Section 4. Face-to-face with Jinns.
An inexplicable whisper sets the stage for a genuinely terrible decision. Matthew, being the content-hungry journalist that he was, decided that if there was truly a mystery here, his readers back in Germany and the US would love to laugh at it. So he returned to his caretaker, told him what happened, and the caretaker was so terrified he handed Matthew a protective tawiz, which is an amulet. Matthew put it on just to appease the guy, but the second he stepped outside, he took it off and shoved it into his pocket. Fast forward to 2 a.m. He arrives back at the locked, deserted ruins and sneaks over a broken wall. Once inside, the cause and effect were undeniable. Right after sneaking in, 4 or 5 boys warned him not to go further. He ignored them, stating he was there to expose their blind faith. He pulled out his camera, explicitly cursing and mocking the entities on video, laughing at how empty and unimpressive the place was. But the more he mocked, the worse it got. Shadows actually began emerging inside the deep caves, and as he tried to leave, the exits completely vanished, leaving him hopelessly trapped in the pitch black.
And then the impossible happens right in front of his recording camera. Remember how hot and humid it was earlier that day? Suddenly, out of nowhere, a violent gust of wind howls through the dead ruins, and right before Matthew's eyes, an old, dead, unlit candle resting near a pillar spontaneously bursts into flames. His heart rate spikes. He realizes this isn't some cheap trick. He peers into the cave illuminated by that single candle and sees a shadow moving. A shadow with absolutely no physical body casting it.
Matthew runs in a blind panic. He's completely lost in the dark maze of the ruins. Suddenly, he spots a lit room. He rushes in to ask for help, only to find the exact same boys who had warned him at the entrance. He begs them for the way out, but instead of helping, they just look at him and deliver this chilling truth. "We give humans the day, but the night is ours. We have lived here for hundreds of years." The boys weren't human. They were the very jinns he had been mocking. And the exact moment they finished speaking, the candle in the room blew out, plunging Matthew back into pitch-black darkness.
Section 5. The Amulet's Miracle and Lesson.
Matthew is literally running for his life at this point. Every pillar he passes, he sees figures sitting in the shadows. He finally spots the broken wall he used to sneak in, but as he sprints toward it, the entities, the jinns, are standing right there. They're blocking his exit. They tell him he entered on his own, but he cannot leave without their permission. In a moment of sheer, desperate terror, it hits him. The tawiz, the amulet his caretaker had forced upon him. Frantically, he jams his hand into his pocket. He pulls it out, he slips it on, and the very second that amulet touches his skin, the entities instantly vanish into thin air. Matthew scrambled over the wall, survived, and was so deeply terrified by the whole ordeal that he booked a flight out of the country that exact same night.
So, what do we actually learn from this intense source account? First, the lore insists that good and bad entities coexist. The source material emphasizes that while some jinns can be incredibly dangerous if disrespected, many are believed to be helpful. I mean, that's why people still leave letters and candles there every single Thursday. Second, always research a location's history. If Matthew had just bothered to learn about where he was stepping, he wouldn't have been in that situation to begin with. And finally, the most important takeaway of all, respect local cultures and boundaries. Whether you personally believe in the paranormal or not, walking into a space held sacred by thousands of people and openly mocking it is just a recipe for absolute disaster. I want to leave you with this final thought. Are we truly alone in historical spaces, or do some ancient residents never actually leave? Feroz Shah Kotla stands today exactly as it has for centuries, holding the prayers of thousands by day and belonging to the unseen by night. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and as always, respect the history beneath your feet.